Hey everybody, welcome to Noir Central Station, episode 3. Today is the final film in the trio that I wanted to start out by talking about, and that is I Wouldn't Be in Your Shoes from 1948. It is a monogram picture, noir, starring Don Castle, and another one starring Regis Toomey. So, we've talked about The Guilty, we talked about High Tide, and now we're talking about this one. All three of them monogram pictures, Don Castle, Regis Toomey. So I'm ready to move on to some other noirs, and so this is a great one to leave off with before we return down the road to some more monogram film noirs. I Wouldn't Be in Your Shoes is actually the third one of the three that I watched. I actually watched it sometime later. I had always seen it like on Warner Archive after this Blu-ray came out. I always saw it for like a really good price, and the cover sold me alone. So I can't remember if I blind bought this or if I watched it on TCM. But I do know the first time I watched it, I loved it, just like I've loved the other two. So this one, Don Castle does not play a newspaper man turned private investigator. He does not play a ex-soldier who is, living in an apartment with his old war buddy. So this one, he is a dancer. His wife and himself, they are vaudeville dancers, and they're just trying to make ends meet. He actually does not make nearly as much money as she does because she actually teaches dance lessons down the street, and he's just trying to find odd jobs here and there. So I'm purposely going to leave a bunch of little details vague, and I'm not going to because I really want people to see these movies. If it was a movie like Double Indemnity or even like Sunset Boulevard, I'll start giving spoiler warnings if you haven't seen those. But for some of these underseen films, I want to keep you going in as blind as possible. So one night when he's waiting for his wife to come home, he gets frustrated, hears cats outside. He takes his shoes and throws them out the window to kind of get the cats away. He goes over to try to find the shoes later outside the window, and he can't find them. He wakes up the next morning, and they're at the front door. He's happy he has his shoes back. So around the same time, there was a murder that happens nearby, and he had a neighbor that was very, very wealthy. Apparently, he had a huge stash of money, and his footprints or his shoe prints are found next to his stash of money, and some of the money is missing. Meanwhile, his wife, like I said, gets does lessons, and she gets a very generous tip from one of her customers that is kind of infatuated with her, and so police are starting to investigate what's going on. They see his shoe prints, they do the investigating, and make its way back to Don Castle. Turns out one of the police officers is played by Regis Toomey, and he is also the same guy who is getting the dance lessons from Don Castle's wife. So the cops don't believe the story about that he didn't have anything to do with the murder and stuff, and he goes to jail. Don Castle goes to jail, and his wife starts the investigation on her own and tries to find the real killer. So that is actually what sets this film apart from the other three, is that Don Castle's character kind of takes a back seat, and his wife is the one who starts really trying to take on the investigation on her own, because she knows the cops aren't going to help, even though one of the cops is one of her customers that really, really likes her. And she's just doing it on her own. Meanwhile, he's sitting in a jail cell waiting execution for the murder of this guy. So the title, literally, I wouldn't be in your shoes. Because whoever was wearing his shoes may have or may not have been doing, may or may not have done the murder. So I really, really like this one. It's my least favorite out of the three that I've talked about so far, but I really love them all three for different reasons. This is a great Warner Archive release. Has a little nice restoration. It doesn't have the same love that the other two got in terms of the restoration, but I don't think this one needed it as bad as the other two. So this film was produced by Walter Mirisch. He is the producer that eventually goes on to win Oscars for like The Apartment, and he becomes a pretty big producer, but he started out doing B pictures like this. Also, it's from a story by Cornell Woolrich. Like I've mentioned once in the past, Cornell Woolrich, incredibly prolific writer, especially for the noir crime. So this screenplay was written by pulp writer Steve Fisher. Steve Fisher was another one of the writers that was writing in like all those magazines, like detective magazines and detective romances, Crime Busters, Pocket Detective. He did Doc Savage, Hard Boiled. And then eventually he started working with Black Mask and became really popular with them, as well as Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, Cornell Woolrich. So he's a contemporary of other masters. Later down the road, he got into screenplays, including this one, eventually writing for like the Saturday Evening Post, one of the few. Actually, at the time, I think he was the first pulp crime writer to actually move on to those kind of publications. And I'm pretty sure he ended his career in the 70s, and he wrote episodes of like Starsky and Hutch, Barnaby Jones, Macmillan and Wife. So he had a pretty long career in writing, and he wrote this one, and I really just wanted to showcase him because he is somebody that I had never heard of in terms of like, you know, you always hear about Dashiell Hammett and Cornell Woolrich and a bunch of other writers. But he's one I never really heard of, so I wanted to kind of shout him out as much as I can. And so I wanted to kind of showcase that a little bit. So his wife is played by Elise Knox. I had not seen her in many other things. I probably should have looked her up before I filmed this video, but I didn't. But she is very good in this film. And I think just the fact that the second half of the movie is female-led, not only that, a strong female, is pretty awesome for the era. Like I said, this movie came out in 1948. And this is kind of off topic, but film noir, compared to many other genres and styles of film, really had women on the same wavelength as men, if not more powerful than men, which is great because a lot of the movies at the time are very dated in how women are perceived. And like I said, in this one, his wife is doing the investigating. And in film noirs, you have these like femme fatales that like this whole town is in the palm of her hand. And I just love that about film noir. It's a very pro-woman genre / style. And I know some people would be like, well, some of them, you know, they're villains. And so I was like, but they have equal footing that the men do. And some of the men just come under the spell of some of these femme fatales. They're just so powerful. It's great to see. That's all I had to say about that. So I highly recommend this movie. So I hope you guys seek all these films out. And some of them are streaming. Rent them on like Amazon Prime or something like that. I would suggest blind buying some of these because you'll be able to support them and the restorations. So, thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and I will see you next week, and see you next time on Noir Central Station. Take care.